Welcome to Search for Signs. My name is Gary Willing. If this information interests you, please press the like and subscribe button and press the bell for notifications. Hope you're doing well today. It is October the 29th, 2020, and hope you're having a great day wherever you happen to be. And if you happen to be living here in the southern part of the United States, such as myself, hopefully you survived the tropical storm Catherine Zeta-Jones last night. I know when I woke up this morning, it was so windy outside, I thought I'd have woken up in Kansas with a tin man, a scarecrow, and a cowardly lion. But nope. I'm still here in Georgia. Now, I don't normally post videos the very next day after posting another video. I usually try to give it a day or two. But there was so much discussion over the last video and some questions, I just couldn't help myself. I wanted to post another video. I like doing these videos, so thanks for indulging me on this. And if you have a question about Maitreya, the Masters of Wisdom, you can do a couple things. You can either post your question as a comment. You can just make a comment, and if it's relevant, we'll talk about it. Or you can email me directly at searchforsigns@mail.com, and then I'll try to answer it in the next video. So anyway, I want to give a shout out to everybody that's been posting comments and questions here lately. They've been really good, so thank you so much. So let's get on into the video. All right, the first, this isn't a question, this is a comment. First comment, it is assumed that Maitreya left the Shambhala desert and returned to the world again, which means that it will come very soon. The post-corona world is the world of the new global order led by Maitreya. Well, you know what they say about assumptions. They're the mother of all fuck-ups. Hey, man, I can't believe that guy cussed on that YouTube channel. Yeah, I know, I do. I do drop F-bombs in my life from time to time. All right. Yeah, pretty much everything that you said is really not true. I mean, there's no such thing as a Shambhala desert. The Shambhala is the planetary center where the will aspect of God is known in the Gobi Desert. If you were to go there, you probably wouldn't see very much unless you had etheric vision. But if you do decide you want to go to the Gobi Desert to find Shambhala, definitely bring some water, because I know that there's not a lot of water around there. It's pretty dry. And from what I understand, it'd actually be quite cold. So just because it's a desert doesn't mean it's hot. So you might want to bring some sweaters too, I guess. It might be really, really cold at night there too. So maybe even a jacket or two. But I digress. No, Maitreya didn't leave Shambhala. His abode that he'd been living in for over 100,000 years was 17,500 feet up in the Himalayas. And that's where he was living for quite some time. And from what I understand, there's not a lot of 7-Elevens around where he was, and barbershops and movie theaters and stuff. I mean, he pretty much was out there by himself. And then he left that abode in the mid-July 1977, and then entered London on July 19th, 1977. Now, the other thing, too, about this comment, when it comes to the new global order led by Maitreya, for decades now, people have been frightened of the term New World Order. They think that means that the Illuminati is going to take over all the governments in the world. There's going to be martial law everywhere, and people will be put in internment camps and so forth. They've been talking about this for decades, and of course, none of that has happened. Anyway, they were afraid people were going to take their guns here in the United States and all that kind of stuff. All just a bunch of hogwash. But if there is a new global order, it will be a new global order that is based on peace and justice for all, not just a few. And I don't see it really being led by Maitreya, but he will inspire and galvanize us to do it. You know, as Maitreya put it, the problems of the world are real but solvable. But man must act and implement his will. So nothing happens by itself. Maitreya is not going to do it for us, because we were the ones that mucked it up, and we're the ones that have to fix it. Okay, so anyway, but these masters will be alongside of us, aiding us every step of the way, so that hopefully we won't find ourselves back on the edge of the cliff, which is where we find ourselves today, if you've been paying attention. So anyway, hopefully that helps. All right, next question. I heard about Maitreya through Mr. Creme. Is Lord Maitreya coming soon? Are you the spokesperson for Share International now? Well, anyway, thanks for the question. Is Lord Maitreya coming soon? He is already here. He's been on TV for over 10 years now. and was living in London since like I just said, since July of 1977. So we don't have to worry about him coming. We just have to worry about recognizing him. And for those of us who have an inkling of who Maitreya is, when he does start to speak in a way that maybe is a little bit more of in line with what we're thinking he's going to say, then it'll be easier for us to pick up on that. That is Maitreya. But evidently, he does not look like the photos that people think he's going to look like. The most common picture of Maitreya is the one that I always have in my videos with him and how he looked in Nairobi, Kenya in June of 1988 with this white garb on his head, right? And this white robe. And that's the reason why he was dressed like that was because the religious group that he met at that time, it appeared out of the blue, Maitre Agnostic's group, which is a fundamentalist Christian group. That's how they imagined Jesus to come back. So that's why he dressed like that. So, maybe he's wearing that, but he's got really dark rimmed glasses, kind of like Clark Kent and Superman. So maybe that's the reason why nobody can pick up on it, or at least Lois Lane can't pick up on the fact that that's Maitreya talking to him. I don't know. But no, I would assume that he doesn't look anything like that. Is he light-skinned? Is he dark-skinned? Does he have, Middle Eastern descent? I don't know what he looks like. These masters can change their look at will. So I would assume that he is so different in look that people just don't even know that that's him. But apparently, according to Benjamin Creme's master, people are starting to recognize him and have even started to pray to him and so forth like that. And there are other people who maybe aren't praying to him, but are seeing him as something, not as they're not seeing him as an ordinary person. They're seeing him as the answer to their prayers, really. So anyway, hopefully that helps. Are you the spokesperson for Share International? No. I mean, who would want to be? They don't pay hardly anything for that role. Now, I know Benjamin Creme he was a spokesperson for Share International, but he worked for, 40 years, didn't get paid a dime. So, he didn't even have a 401k or dental, or anything like that. So, no, I'm not. But I do have links for the Share International website in the description of every one of my videos and other videos that Share International put up that are on YouTube and so forth, because it's a good resource. Now, is it the best website out there? No, it's pretty dated, and it's not as functional as it probably should be, so there's not a lot of bells and whistles on the website, but it still serves its purpose, I think. And if you go there, and I do recommend checking it out, if you go there, you can see all these different links from the hand of Maitreya. You can see a picture of the hand of Maitreya, so you know what I was talking about the other day when I was talking about that. You can even download a picture of it if you need to. There are a lot of the articles that I read from Benjamin Creme's master are printed up in there, so you can read them for yourself. There's ways to get his books if you need to, or you want to, I guess. There are videos on there. There are audio clips from Benjamin Creme talking over the years and so forth. There even as a link for ways of serving through doing transmission meditation. So there might be a transmission meditation group in your area. It talks about who and what transmission meditation is, why it is a service, and how it benefits not only you but the world to do it, that kind of thing. And if there's not a group in your area, it'll also show you how you can do transmission meditation to set up your own group. So, because it needs to be done in a group. So there's a lot of different things that website can do. Because I haven't really had an inclination to start my own website with my own take on this information. I'd rather just refer you to that because I think that information's better. But there's not, as far as I know, there's not any YouTube channels that discuss Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom in the way that we do that on this channel, where it's more of a discussion. Because even the videos with Benjamin Creme, as informative as they are, and you hear it from Benjamin Creme, which only Benjamin Creme can, you can only get it from, some things you can only get from Benjamin Creme, but there's not, like I said, there's not a lot of people discussing it, so it's a little bit different. This is the reason why I like doing these videos, because people post questions, they post comments, we can talk a little bit more about this, we can read a little bit from Benjamin Creme's Master's articles, so it's more like a class, really, than it is a lecture, that kind of thing. So, alrighty. Thank you, though, for the question. All right, so the next comment comes from, I think after the election and trials, you may have to rethink your view of Trump. All right. Well, stand back and stand by, right? Thank you, Robert, for that. And then the next comment leads to a question at the very end, Paul. I'm not going to read the whole thing out. It will take me forever to read that out, and I'm not that fascinating of a narrator to read that out to where people will really want to hear it the whole way through. So if you want to read what he says, feel free. But anyway, Paul, thanks for posting all that. But I will try to answer your question at the bottom of it. But to kind of lead up to the question, he was talking about Hannah Newman and the book, The Rainbow Swastika. And, I never read her book. I had heard about that book because I remember the image that I had in my mind of the Rainbow Swastika is kind of like these neo-Nazis, but yet walking in a pride parade. But anyway, that was just the vision I had in my head. But that's why I always laugh when I have that title, or hear that title. But I did read Constance Cumbey's book, and I did watch the video that you sent me, where she's talking about the link between Maitreya and QAnon that we talked about in the last video. So I do thank you for sending me that. So the where is it? The last paragraph before your questions, I'll kind of tee up the question, I guess, a little bit better than just reading the question on its own. So basically, I posted the first quote from Hannah Newman to show she was attributing to both Helena Blavatsky and Alice Bailey a belief in Gnosticism, and to show how she described it as a religion that believes that the Jehovah of God of, and I've never heard that word Jewry. Is that the Jewish people? I guess is what you're trying to say, is evil and created the wicked material world, trapping humanity's spirit in this bad world, and that Lucifer is a good God who will liberate mankind from Jehovah. I quoted Edward Gibbon's description of Gnosticism to show that Hannah Newman's view of what Gnostics believe is agreed with by mainstream historians, so it seems to be accurate. Is Maitreya Agnostic? Does he believe that Jehovah, the God of the Hebrew Bible, Old Testament, is an evil God who created the wicked material world and trapped humanity's spirit in the bad material world, and that Lucifer, or some other good God, will liberate humanity from Jehovah? All right. Well, thanks for writing all that out, Paul, and thank you for the question. So, I'm not as familiar with Helena Blavatsky's work as I am with Alice Bailey, and most of what I'm familiar with Helena Blavatsky is coming from Alice Bailey or from Benjamin Creme when they're talking about it, because when I read her books, they seemed a little above my pay grade. I mean, and Alice Bailey's books seemed a little above my pay grade too, but not quite as much as Helena's Blavatsky's book. But there's a lot of truths in those two. But the Constance Cumbey's and I guess Helena Newman's take on both of them is very, from my point of view, is very prejudicial. And whether Constance Cumbey took the time to read it all out and see what she was talking about, or she just took excerpts from here and kind of used it to support her own prejudicial view on what Alice Bailey was talking about, I don't know. I don't really even care, to be honest with you. Alice Bailey was never anti-Semitic. Now, she was critical of the Jewish people, which I think she had every right to be, because she sees the injustice of what they were doing in a lot of ways. Now, so there's a difference, and it's just like when I criticize Trump, Robert, calling you out. No, I'm just kidding. It doesn't mean that I'm not patriotic. And I know you're not saying I'm unpatriotic, Robert, but there are people in my life when I've spoken out against what the United States does from time to time. I have family members who try to label me as being unpatriotic and so forth, but I'm just being critical of the country that I love. I love this country. I know the purpose behind this country, and I know what it's capable of doing. And it's not, God, I hope this isn't the end all and be all of what this country is about. I really don't. I think that this country is a great country, and the people with living within it are just amazing, amazing, amazing people. And yet we're living in the world that we're living in. You know what I mean? So I'm critical of that. So she, was critical of a lot of things, and not only the Jewish people, but of a lot of different aspects of life. She was critical of the American government during that time and so forth. But one of the things to realize, I guess, is the reason why the Christ chose the Jewish people was not because they were God's chosen people. It's because within the Jewish people is every degree of humanity. So there was from the lowest now to the highest, now that the Christ was there, because the Christ is the highest that humanity can have to offer, right? So that's why they did it. And to believe it or not, the reason why the Axis powers, especially Hitler, well, it was not so much the Japanese and the fascists of Italy, but especially mainly the Nazis in Germany, the reason why they were so focused on their torturing of the Jewish people, they were being obsessed by the forces of darkness, and they see it. They saw the Jewish people not as anything that really needed to be singled out more than they represented all humanity. So they were basically taking out their anger and their hatred of humanity on what is a microcosm of humanity. That's what Alice Bailey was saying in terms of the ultimate root cause of what was going on during World War II. Now, one of the criticisms that I read that Alice Bailey talked about, which I think is a justifiable criticism, and I know Benjamin Creme's been accused of being anti-Semitic by Constance Cumbey for saying the same thing, is the suffering of the Jewish people for so long, for eons, right? They've suffered at the hands of different groups, right? And it's defined them as a people. But then when it comes time for them, they turn around and do the exact same thing to the Palestinians that was done to them, and the genocide that's happened over the past few decades because of the Israeli state against the Palestinians and so forth. Moved off their land and put, millions of people, millions of Palestinians literally shoved off their land that they've been living there their whole lives, and their ancestors have been living there for for thousands of years, shoved off their land, and a few 100,000 at the time, I guess, Israelis, started putting up their settlements and so forth. It was an unjust situation, and it was under the influence of the forces of darkness that had that happen. So that's why she's being more critical of the forces of darkness than she is even of the Jewish state. You know what I mean? And same thing with Benjamin Creme. But where was I? So the other thing too that Benjamin Creme said, and this might shed light on part of their criticism of, let's say, Zionists, for instance, is Benjamin Creme's master said that we reincarnate in groups. So a lot of people who were born in England today are former Indians in their last lifetime, and people who were born in India around this time were former English and Brits in their last lifetime. So there's a swap, you know what I mean? A lot of the people who were born in England today were former Romans and so forth. But the Zionists in Israel that are really under the influence of the forces of darkness at this time. It's one of the 3 points of darkness that's still out there. The Pentagon, Eastern Europe, with around Yugoslavia and that area, the Slavic area, and then the Zionist movement in Israel. Those are the 3 points of darkness, just like the Axis powers were in World War I and World War II. But are reincarnates of former Nazis, not the upper level guys, not Hitler and Goebbels and what's the Desert Fox, whatever the heck his name was, Rommel, you know what I mean? But the underlings, but were still very powerful, and that when they died back decades ago, they've reincarnated again in the Zionist movement in Israel, and they're doing to the Palestinians just what the Nazis did to the Jews. So that's where their criticism's coming from that. Now, other things that they've talked about, I would have to read the quote per se and kind of try to shed my own light on it as much as I could. But, Alice Bailey was critical of a lot of things, and I think justifiably so. She wasn't just raining on there about the Jews. It was about a lot of different injustices that were around during her time and even to this day. But the whole misinterpretation of Lucifer, and to be honest with you, I've wanted to go the whole time in this channel and not have to really talk about this, but since you brought it up, I guess I'll talk about it, is she talked about Lucifer in a different way. And of course, then people like Constance Cumbey, being dogs on a bone, she's talking about Satan worship because Lucifer is the Satan, and that's what they believe in the Bible. Now, if we were to go back to Genesis, right? When it was written in the Bible, it was written in as a symbol, right? That God created, man, heaven, and earth, in 7 days, right? Where and what day was there's this great rebellion that some of these angels got fed up with serving in heaven and wanted to rule in hell. You know what I mean? It was all a symbol. It was a symbol for the origins of mankind, is what it was. Lucifer comes from the Latin word which means lux, or light. And it's not a demonic angel that rules in hell. Now, if you're a Christian, you believe that, that's fine. I don't really care. I'm just showing you what Alice Bailey was writing about and why she was writing it in that way. Shedding a light on the real truth of the origins of mankind. But we are individualized soul of one soul called the oversoul of humanity. The biblical term for that oversoul is Lucifer. That's the oversoul of all of what we are. So if you were to look at, let's say, a dog or a cat or a mule or a horse or a snake even or a shark or whatever it is, when a dog dies, it's reabsorbed back into the soul of the dog. I mean, the dog soul, the oversoul of what we would consider all the dogs to be. So they're not individualized souls in the way that we are, with their own individual purpose, with their own evolution in their own hands, the same way that a person would. So the symbols of the Garden of Eden and Adam and Eve and eating of the apple and Lucifer and all those were symbols for really what the origins of mankind were. And so when we die, our soul remains individualized, but we are a part of a oversoul of all humanity. And we are one group, we are one family, but we really, in a very real sense, are one. As Swami Maharishi was asked one time, Master, how do I help others? And he goes, there are no others. He was speaking the truth. There really isn't anybody, different than you. It's all you. It's all me. It's all Maitreya. Even Maitreya is you. And he'll tell you that, right? So, but that's the truth of it. But, like I said, we're all individualized in a way during this part of time. But, the masters don't see themselves as individuals. They only see themselves as one, So they've really, that individual sense that you and I would have that we hold so dear, which is an illusion. It's an illusion of being separate. They don't have. But again, to get back into it, what Alice Bailey and Blavatsky were talking about was the soul of humanity, not a fallen angel that went into hell. That's, some people call Satan, other people call Lucifer, Mephistopheles, the devil. I mean, all that stuff. Those are all man-made terms of, a misunderstanding of what Lucifer is. Now, in terms of the devil and Satan and all those kind of things, I believe personally that when Jesus was talking about those and referring to them in the Bible, he was referring to the selfish nature of every one of us. And when Satan tempted him in the garden, it was his selfishness that was tempting him to do something other than the will of God, so to speak. So, but he didn't fall for it. But anyway, but you know what I'm saying? But that's what I think that's coming from. So I think it's a total misunderstanding of it. But like I said, I kind of was hoping, Paul, that I could have gone the whole time and not talked about it, because it's really not, discussing those kind of things online isn't really what I want to talk about. I want to talk about what we need to do to create peace on the world, what we need to do to end suffering in the world, what we need to do to create justice for everyone in the world. And that's more important to me than discussing really the origins of man at this moment in time. And then in time, as perhaps the majority of us trust these masters, when they start teaching it will have a little bit different take on it, about who and what the origins of mankind are, that maybe when we hear words like that, we won't get quite as triggered. But, it kind of goes back to the whole, like the sword of cleavage. I mentioned it in a video or two ago where when Jesus said, I come not to bring peace, but to bring a sword, right? To set father against son, mother against daughter, brother against brother, neighbor against neighbor, right? Was he talking about an actual sword of a certain length made of metal? No, it was a symbol. He was talking about the love nature of God and how it affects humanity when the Christ is present in humanity, right? It happened during the time of Jesus. He obviously was creating a division amongst the powers that be and those people who saw Jesus' teachings as the truth. It was creating a separation in that way, just as it is today, where we have the left versus right politics. We have the Israelis versus the Palestinians, United States versus everybody else. You know what I'm saying? So it's just, and like I even mentioned before, the abortion issue is very divisive, right? I mean, all that's coming from the love nature of God. And then to talk about the Antichrist, you got people who think and are waiting for and expecting the Antichrist to come out at any moment if he's not already out here, like Maitreya, hidden away, talking on TV about peace, all to deceive people, because eventually the hammer's going to drop and he's going to be deceiving everybody. And then it'll be too late. Then it'll be in control of all the people in the military and the power elite that are satanic worshipers. I mean, it's just, I'm saying? It's all fear, right? When in actuality, the Antichrist was an energy that was released during the time of Nero, and was also released during the time of Hitler, and it destroyed the old ways of thinking and relating. So it's done. So the people who are looking for the Antichrist, like Constance Cumbey and others who put videos up on YouTube, they're really wasting their time. And they don't see it that way. But, in truth, that's really what's going on. And they're just wasting their time. And they're wasting everybody else's time. And they're spreading fear, and they're spreading propaganda and fear and paranoia that we have so much of it in the world today. It's only adding to the fire. But anyway, hopefully that helps. All right. Next comment, I'm not going to read all of it, but I'm going to read the first part of it. Comes from Rick. What are you talking about, Willis? Rick, you really dated yourself with that one, brother. I did pick up on the different strokes reference. Thank you very much. And his name was Gary Coleman, and my name is Gary, and I used to be called Gary Coleman all the time when I was coming up. So anyway, where did you put... Because I'm a left and right-wing thinker who would fall under the conspiracy theorist, as many are. So, Rick, I didn't know that about you. So, as of the recording of the last video, I had never met a left-wing conspiracy theorist. Had I known about this less than 24 hours ago, I would have said, I know one person who's a left-wing conspiracy theorist, but everybody else I've ever met that was a conspiracy theorist always had extreme right-wing tendencies. So, thank you for adding to the discussion, Rick. I appreciate it and hope you're doing well. All right. The next question. Oh, hello, Gary. Well, hello, T. What is Maitreya's priorities that you keep mentioning in your video? I am looking forward to hearing what you have to say about it. All right. Well, there's several. Let's talk about the first two that are most important, and then we'll talk about the other ones that will come after. Okay, so the first one that is the most important, that he will most assuredly, if he hasn't already been talking about, is the need for humanity to create peace in the world, true and lasting peace. If we do not do that, according to Maitreya, we will eventually destroy ourselves and all life on the planet. And I know a lot of people, even some people that comment on this channel and like to comment a lot on this channel, Tao Zenchi, I'm talking about you, don't mind seeing the world end. I don't know about you, but I really don't want to see that. So and most of us, I don't think, want to see that. So when Maitreya is talking about peace, he knows that within the hearts of all of us, even Tao Zenchi, is the longing for unity, the longing for peace. Even the most, it might be very dim, it might be almost non-existent and not even visible to the majority of us when we look at somebody. But within the hearts of them even is the longing for peace. So Maitreya speaking on TV directly to humanity, he's speaking heart to heart, from his heart, from the Lord of Love's heart, directly to the person's heart. So it is having an effect, and it will have more of an effect as he starts to speak in a greater and greater, with a greater sense of urgency, but also in a broader way so more important people can hear him, right? Really. And then as people start to pick up on, they might not know he's Maitreya, but they might go, I never really thought about it like that. But where they're coming from in thinking that is, they probably thought about it all the time, couldn't really articulate it, but it's what's been going on inside of them the whole time, is they wanted peace. They wanted justice for everybody. They wanted everybody to I mean, who really wants hunger in the world? I mean, really. And if you do, you really shouldn't be listening to this channel, right? They might be going, yeah, I really want that. I never thought about it like that. I never thought that we could have peace even, because it's been told to me my whole life that we could never have peace. Peace is never going to be possible, or it's too utopian, or it's too far away, or maybe, 10,000 years into the future or something. Or they might not even know, which is probably more the case, that I didn't realize if we don't create peace, we might not have a future. Something like that even, right? So Maitreya keeps it very simple. Without sharing, There could be no justice. Without justice, there could be no peace. Without peace, there could be no future. The sharing portion of it is very, very, very similar to the Marshall Plan that was instituted by the United States, one of the most capitalist country, if not the most capitalist country in the world. At that moment was the only time that the soul nature, the love nature of this country actually manifested itself, but gave a bit of the excesses that were in this country to Western Europe to rebuild Europe. He's talking about doing it on a global scale. So all those people were concerned about socialism and this and, communism and, that's what Maitreya is evil because communism and socialism are evil and blah, 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 blah. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about taking excesses that are going to go bad and just waste away and give it to those who need it. And then when that happens, those countries that might be a little bit smaller or a lot smaller or just have a few people or be very, very poor can build up their infrastructure and help their people out. And then they have some excesses to give back to the common pool too. It might not be as much as the United States, but they got something. So anyway, that's what he's talking about. So without that, there will be no justice for anyone. So all these people who are fighting in the streets and marching in the streets all around the world for justice, they really need to go back and look at marching for sharing, and then they can get the justice that they want. And then those people who are marching for peace around the world have to go back and look at sharing as the first and most important piece of the puzzle. Because they're skipping steps. You know what I mean? They want peace. They don't know what they want. They don't know how to get there. But Maitreya is going to say we need to share the world's resources first. And he's going to show us that that's what we need to do. Also on the Day of Declaration, when he speaks to humanity directly, to all of us, we'll all hear him inwardly in our own head, in our own language. He will also give us a vision of the importance of sharing, why we need to do it, because if we don't, this will happen. We'll see that vision that Maitreya will present to all of humanity. We'll all see the same thing in our head from his perspective. We will also see what will happen if we do institute the principle of sharing and how great peace will be for all of us if we just do that. We will see that. So we have help, you know what I mean? But that's his first priority. Then, of course, the second priority is we got to SOP, save our planet. We have to clean up our environment, the pollution, the nuclear pollution, the greenhouse gases, and so forth and so forth and so forth, that everyone's denying is even a problem. Well, not everybody, but some half of the world is denying is even a problem. Let me put it like that. We have to tackle that, but we can't tackle that until we trust each other and the nations trust one another. So that's why it's important to do the first thing first is save humanity by sharing the world's resources. But I did want to end by reading a bit of the other priorities too. Okay, so this is coming from one of Benjamin Creme's master's article called "The Son of Man." Hands down, this article, and if you do go to Share International, I'm sure they have this article written in there somewhere. Talks about who and what the Son of Man really is, and what he means for humanity and stuff. And it's quite an inspiring, from my perspective, inspiring message or article. But this is what Benjamin Creme's master said will be Maitreya's priorities listed out. Okay, so let us take a look at his priorities. The establishment of peace, the inauguration of the system of sharing, the removal of guilt and fear, the cleansing of the hearts and minds of men, the education of mankind in the laws of life and love, an introduction to the mysteries, the beautification of our cities, the removal of barriers to travel and interchange of peoples, the creation of a pool of knowledge accessible to all. So according to what I can see, the only one of his priorities that is actually even remotely in place right now is the creation of a pool of knowledge accessible to all, which is the internet. Maybe not be in the form that he's thinking that we need to do it. So I don't think he was necessarily thinking about TikTok videos per se, or ASMR videos, or videos about slime on YouTube or whatever kids watch these days, like my daughter. Calling you out, daughter. But more of where scientists and thinkers and people who are serving, the world and so forth can exchange and share ideas freely all around the world at a moment's notice. And we can get communication. We can relate to one another. We can get information and so forth. So it's not just about commerce, which is really and commercialization, which is really kind of taken over the internet, right? It's more about sharing, really, sharing of ideas, sharing of and exploring the world in that way as well, and communicating. And then, the priorities, those priorities like the beautification of the cities and the teaching of and removal of guilt and fear and all that stuff, which will start to take place not long after peace is established. But the main thing is really, peace and cleaning up our environment. So I want to thank everybody who's commented, give you a shout out again about it. And I can't wait to hear more questions and try to answer them as best I can and see the comments that come from this video. So you guys have a great day and stay safe out there, and talk to you soon. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.